It's me. Today it won't be a short video because I actually took some notes of what I wanted to talk about today. Different methods, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I actually have a whole list of things that I could talk about for future videos. However, I think what might work better for me is taking the thing that I'm thinking about the most in a day and choosing to kind of touch on in its own note, not with any other topics, but in its own note, what exactly I want to talk about in regards to whatever that is. Because just having a whole selection of things to choose from, think about it. When you are looking for an inspo, let's say you're looking for an inspo on what to draw. Let's say you're looking for a reference. There's so many different things that could pique your interest. There's so many different images itself. And it can be very overstimulating. And it can be very hard to decide what to choose to talk about, especially if everything that you're seeing you're interested in. Kind of like how For You pages are. To an extent, it depends. It depends. But yeah. So I decided that today would be about whatever I learned about in my course that I'm taking. I'm taking FACS 450. If you don't know what FACS is Family and Consumer Science. And it's one of my courses because I'm an HDFS major, but my emphasis is wellness. So the major itself is very wide. The spectrum is wide. The spectrum of information that I'm learning about is very wide. It's not too specialized. The emphasis is wellness. So with wellness, there's many things that you have to, or that you should be aware of, or that you should know about, that are aspects to wellness. But I was in that course, and that course is a happiness and well-being course. And it's their first year of offering that course. So I was glad that I was able to take it. But I really like that course. And today, we kind of transitioned into our new module, which is about the effects of social media. Which I find funny because I'm posting on here. And I also find it funny because I'll get into what exactly I said towards the end of the class when she asked about what our thoughts are of social media, how we feel about social media in regards to our happiness, because it is a happiness and well-being course. So, of course, we're going to want to connect it to what the basis of the course is about anyway. But I will get to these notes because I think it's important to make it so I'm kind of organized. And I also did a poem today that I might share on here. And it's in relation to, I'm not going to call it an outburst, but like a reaction that I had today that to an extent gave me this out of body feeling, but I knew out of body feeling because of who it was towards, and then my almost instant understanding of where it came from. So yeah, might share that. I really like that one today. I haven't written since maybe the 13th, a poem of sorts, because I do that now. And I just have it as a goal for every day. I don't get to it every day. I usually get to it every other day. And sometimes I can get to it every day. Like in a good week, a week or so, I can get to it every day. But I've been doing it every so often. You get it. You get it. But let's get into what I took down. Because, so the class itself is very, very much a discussion kind of class. I feel like it's less lecture, and if it's not less lecture, then it's more so the type of class where there's a really good balance and integration of group communication. And it's very free, there's no right or wrong. And I feel that based off of what the course is about, there really shouldn't be an emphasis on something being right or wrong. And that's especially so because our professor is a couples and family therapist. So it only makes sense that she kind of thinks that, and she's a therapist and she talks a lot about psychoanalysis and such. She literally just mentioned it today in relation to the topic, which is social media. So, but yeah, it's very much a discussion course, and we discussed things about different people and their relationship with social media. I know a lot of people mentioned things that we had learned about earlier in the course, such as body image in relation to social media and how being exposed to a variety of unrealistic ideal bodies has effects on people in general. We can say adults, we can also say children, since children are exposed to a lot of things, and children are very likely to have social media in this day and age. And if they don't have social media, then they have access to technology. And I feel like with access to technology, it really doesn't matter what type of phone you have, it's likely that you have access to some sort of social media. So I don't really think I can say. It depends on how young. It depends on whenever you get your technology, or whenever a child receives access to technology. But I feel like once they receive that access, it's like the key to everything else that they could possibly see on the internet, which in itself could be a whole conversation, but we're not really going to get too into that. But I will mention what was discussed. So basically, we were told the statistics on different children basically feeling pressured to send certain things to certain people or be a certain way because of what they're exposed to on the internet. And a lot of my peers basically said that they felt that the number should be higher because of the access that because of the access that people, and specifically children, since I'm talking about children, the access that they have to technology in general, which I honestly agree with. I feel like with my experience, I definitely grew up with access to technology, and I feel like this is in relation to being socialized in general, because most people's experience usually involves being in daycare of some sort, and then you transition to preschool, and then you go to kindergarten, and then you go to elementary, in middle, and so on and so forth. And in elementary, like late elementary, that's when I was exposed to people who had been exposed to porn and things like that. And I seeped into that, and that was a whole cycle, and I would not be surprised by any means if children, even younger than me, even younger than my late elementary age, were exposed to those types of things, because it's like this domino effect. And I feel that the amount would only have this increase because if I grew up with it, and yes, it wasn't that advanced back when I was growing up with it, but if I was exposed, and that was when it was just getting that kickstart of advancement, I can only imagine what it's like now. So that's my thoughts on that. I know towards the end of class, I basically answered the question about my own relationship with technology, and I feel that I have this push and pull when it comes to technology. And what I'm realizing now, or what I'm coming to terms with now, is that it could be a really good asset, a really good outlet for me. And I could expand my reach. I could expand the amount of those that can view things that I create and such. I could use it as a resource. I could use it as a creative outlet. However, being as though I don't use it currently as that outlet, and I don't think that I can include YouTube because YouTube is a little different to me. In terms of like the consumption element or aspect to YouTube, I feel like since you're able to pick and choose what you watch and the length of whatever you're watching, like I try to avoid shorts because I feel like shorts are just like TikTok and just like Instagram Reels and whatever else is out there. But I usually watch full length videos, and I feel like that's something to help you keep your attention span, you know? But yeah, I feel that YouTube is a little different. But when it comes to Instagram, which I deleted it maybe like 2 weeks ago. When it comes to that, I feel that once I realize that I'm seeped in, and once I realize that I'm ignoring something, that's when I get rid of it. That's when I don't like it. That's when I start to have these negative emotions towards the app. Now, I don't necessarily I don't talk bad to myself about what I'm doing. I've gotten to a really good point where I'm just acknowledging that, hey, you've been scrolling. What's going on? Like something that you would do with your friend, I do with myself. Which is interesting because I wasn't really able to explain that. I kind of just said a lot of what I just said without explaining, like, that I'm not shaming myself for overusage of the apps or doom scrolling on the apps. But interestingly enough, the professor talked about how the cycle, the tug of war kind of cycle that people tend to get into when it comes to social media often grants a light to something that they're avoiding, because social media is like, there's a word for this. It's like the perfect tool for escapism. So whatever it is that you may be avoiding, I feel like that's the only thing that I can really touch on right now. That's the only thing that I have in my awareness to even speak on, which is avoidance. I feel like that's what people often will do so they don't have to focus on what it is that they don't want to focus on or don't know how to address within themselves or perhaps within their relationships. They don't have to address emotions that they feel. They don't have to address thoughts that they're having. They don't have to address addictions when they're sitting in an addiction. So, because it can be addictive. So I thought it was very good to hear that that's kind of something that comes from. It comes from the avoidance aspect to life. It's a solution. It doesn't come out of anywhere, which is what she said. And then other people kind of just gave their take on how their relationship has gotten better with social media as they aged due to things that they experienced with it back in like the COVID area and how they used it then versus how they use it now. But yeah. And I love this class in general, just to break away from the topic. I love this class because I love bringing it up to my friend. I love kind of talking about it in my own way without other people knowing that I'm kind of referencing that, because it's such a reflective class. Like, I love the introspection that I can get into based off of the topics that arise from that class. Like, ugh. But we also talked about how the usage of social media can create symptoms such as depression, anxiety, and stress. And all I could think about was the children, for real, when that was brought up. And then I have a lot of different classes that kind of overlap each other. I have an intro to family relations course. I have this course, which is facts, happiness, and well-being. And then I have a lifespan. So I'm learning about the development of all the different phases in life. I'm learning about family relationships and relationships in general. And then this. So these three, like, I just cannot purely think about things that we're talking about in this class without incorporating information from my other classes that I'm learning about. And it's like the relationships that children have with their family members. And I'm going to say family members in specific because I don't want to include those outside relations, because the family in relation to technology, the family is what gives the child access to technology in terms of like that personal access to it. Like if you give your child an iPad or you give your child an iPhone, that's a lot of power that you're giving your child then. And then I can't help but think about the relationship between a child and their parent and or their siblings, and how technology affects a child's development in terms of communication, not just with their parents or with people outside of their home, but the communication with themselves as well. And then it's not just kids or teens that become addicted to their phones. It's the family members themselves. It's the parents themselves as well. And I can only think, okay, yeah, I'm learning quite a bit about work and family balance and how parents are stressed. And not everybody was modeled how to effectively handle their stress and their emotions and family life and work. Not everybody has the methods to do so. Not everybody learns that. So it's just a lot to think about. And it's a lot that kind of topples over each other. The issues of social media kind of speak to the issues of family life to an extent, because I mentioned escapism. And I feel like escapism or isolation or lack of communication speak to a lot of the negative aspects within family relationships. So that's something I think I'll be thinking a lot more about too. Because, yeah, I put that in here. I put the line that I started with in here, but I didn't really go there and think about, damn, yeah, I am pulling and pulling and pulling from every course that I have and trying to connect everything and create a bigger picture. A bigger picture. And then that narrowing, that looking at the detail, that, okay, let me zoom in and out and in and out to see what is this about? Like, what's going on here? Why is this like this? And how is the way that this is like this affecting life? So, I'll be thinking about that. I said negative impacts on our youth due to the thief of joy that is comparison, and the judgments of self due to excessive exposure to imagery. I say imagery because it's far from what's realistic or what is reality. And I think I said that because I was thinking about the body image portion that was mentioned in class, but also because I know that, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier in this video, but when you're exposed to so many things and all of those things pique your interest, it's harder to decide on what it is you want to replicate. Or when you're exposed to something that is supposedly right or ideal, perhaps it's harder for you to come to terms with what it is you reflect, or how you are, or how you look, or how you think, or whatever else. And then I think as a as a lasting thing, a last little tick of the notes that I took, because I looked at the notes, but you could probably tell I just been speaking. So, I said, realizing that we need to acknowledge social media as a tool and less as the culprit of behaviors only humans can make do on these behaviors that we see on social. Okay, what I meant by that is that social media is the tool. Humans are what use the tool. So all the negatives that we see on social media, or perhaps that we push out onto social media, are because of us. It's us. We create that. We release that. So that's shining a light on the issue and the dark side of humanity, not the tool. It's the people using the tool. It's how the tool is being used, which is something that was kind of referenced. It was pretty much referenced in the video that we watched today, because we watched the TED Talk and we watched a short film as well, I think, on the anxiety behind social media use or the anxiety induced symptom from social media use. I think I'll end this, and I won't really touch on I won't touch too much because I kind of explained it early in the video. That poem that I wrote. Yeah, I'll just end up. I'll end on that. So I'll be reading that now. You talk until the words exhaust you. You speak to be heard. You try, but what's the source? What's the source of this effort? Are they empty words? Was it over explanation? See, I know not of your history. Perhaps you've heard these words before, and perhaps I've spoken these words before. Excessive messes and repetition. What value does the apology hold when it's been said once before? A loss at every blow. A walking contradiction. You plead with conviction. Change is a fairy tale in the eyes that impede you. Change starts with the voice and ends with movement of the body. What will you decide? Will you talk until the words exhaust you? Will you lie on the edge of every ear you're offered a stay at? I simply do not know. You don't know what you don't know until you do know. So what will you do with what you know? Such avoidable, troublesome, humanistic matters, an interruption to the nature beyond the doorstep of a mind and body that destructs itself. Selective slumbers and selective voice. You take for granted the choice that you've been bestowed. And the time that you have to amend what you diminish. With each look of the eye, our chaotic stillness of a body you call yours. This body you call yours, with reins around its neck and eyes that glare out to those that your mind places upon the pedestal of life. This pedestal reigns as your prison guard. You wish to wake up even in your sleep. A wish with no command of self. So that's my poem. I really like that one. It's longer than some of my other ones. And I'd like to make them a little bit longer. And I like the story aspect to it too. And it doesn't necessarily have I feel like when I write these, I try to make the ending sound like an ending. But there never really is any ending. It's continuous. And that's kind of difficult to work around. I was going to say to accept, but honestly, I do accept it. I accept it in the way that I continue to write, even though I feel as if perhaps this just isn't complete. But I know it's not. Like, I have to remind myself that everything is just continuous. But, that is it for this video, man. Yeah, that's it for this video, man. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I'll enjoy looking back at it. Here's a little drawing to, end out with. So, over and out.